So you guys bought a brand new truck and you are wondering about the break-in procedure. Ford still asked for a 1,000-mile break-in procedure. As far as I know, Dodge is the same way. I remember my dad's 07 LBZ Duramax said 1,000-mile break-in procedure, or I mean drive it before you tow. But that's what kind of they mean by that, is they don't want you to tow before 1,000 miles. Does it matter? I've seen people asking about does it matter. We're going to have a conversation about what happens when you buy a brand new truck. So what would I know about it? Well, I have many different vehicles with rebuilt axles, rebuilt transmissions, I've rebuilt axles, transfer cases. I've built engines, many different engines that I've run hard, and I've learned a lot, and better yet, had good results from building engines. So I feel like I know a little bit about that. And I bought quite a few new vehicles. And like I said, I've refurbished a lot of older ones and put new parts on them. So I know a little bit about breaking things in. And I know a little bit about bearing clearances and the expectations of aftermarket providers when it comes to what they want, whether it be for a ring and pinion, a transmission, an engine, things like that. So I'm going to try and shed a little bit of light on this. When your vehicle is built, it's brand new, all of these systems were hopefully measured before being assembled and were put together in proper tolerance with proper spacing and all that good stuff. They're going to be close. Microscopically, the surfaces are rough, and they do need to wear in to each other. That process begins to happen immediately upon the first revolutions of when the engine gets started, when the transmission first starts to move. The clutches are wearing into the steels, the splines are working with each other, the U-joints are wearing in with the needle bearings and all the other stuff. The bearing races on for the wheel bearings and for the differential carrier are all wearing in. And in the pinion bearing is all wearing in. They're all getting to know each other, and the pinion faces are interacting with the teeth on the ring gear. They are all immediately starting to wear in. Your pistons, your rings, your bores are all starting to get to know each other. If you want your cam your relationship to your lifters, and the push rod to the rockers, and the rocker to the valve. They are all beginning to wear and microscopically polish the surfaces using the oil to prevent heat. And that process begins from the very first revolutions where these parts are interacting with each other. Just like if you're sharpening a knife, the exact same thing is happening. If you have a part that is a round hole with a square shaft or something like that, you know what I mean? That is going to rear its ugly head very, very quickly. If some part of, whether it be the ring gear is machined wrong, the pinion gear is machined wrong, something's wrong with the bearing, something's wrong with the cam bearing spacing, the thrust measurement is wrong, the bores are the wrong shape or the wrong diameter, or the rings are messed up, or there's a lip on a ring, all those things are going to rear their ugly head so fast it'll make your head spin. I'm talking within the first 50 miles, 100 miles, if you have a part that is actually made wrong or spec'd wrong for the application, it is going to break fast. Probably faster than even 50 miles. I mean, I've seen brand new rear ends that I didn't build that were done improperly break before 50 miles. I'm talking parts shooting out of them. When you do it wrong, it's bad. I've seen engines on first fire up that I had nothing to do with fire up and break. Because thrust was wrong, bearing clearances were wrong. All that stuff is super important. Camshafts will wipe if you have a bad interface or the wrong metallurgy even between the lifter, especially flat tappet, between the flat tappet and the cam lobe. These things start to wear right away. And if there's any more than just a microscopic difference in their interaction with each other, microscopic roughness, the heat is astronomical. Heat makes the part expand, which makes the interference worse, which makes the part get hotter, which leads to a catastrophic failure. If your vehicle is able to roll down the road for the first 10, honestly, 5 miles, 10 miles is probably doing okay. And moreover, if it's able to go the first 100, 250, 500 miles, your vehicle was probably built right in the first place. So once you get over that, really, 10 minutes of idle or 10 minutes of driving, If you still don't have any squeaks, rattles, bangs, pops, grinding, catastrophic, awesome noises of rods coming out of the bottom of your block, you're doing okay. And the engine was probably built pretty close to right. Usually a minor issue that's going to lead to a catastrophic failure will rear its head within the first 1,000 miles. They don't want you to be towing a trailer, have a catastrophic axle failure, something like that, and kill somebody. That's a lot of why they say 1,000 miles. It isn't necessarily for the parts themselves to wear in 1,000 miles. If you had a situation where the parts needed to wear that long and they weren't broken at, say, 999 miles and needed to go to 1,000 miles, the heat created for that whole 1,000 miles of use would be unbelievable and the part would fail. So keep that in mind. What do I recommend you do? If you can, buy your truck, drive it 1,000 miles like everybody says you should do it. Definitely. Now, what if you wrecked your truck? You have a vacation planned with your family, you're going to hook up to your RV, and you bought your new truck, you're sitting in your truck, and you're like, dang it, I just read the book and my salesman told me not to drive 1,000 miles, and that's why I'm watching Doug's video. That's why we're here. Cool. I'm going to tell you this. Can you go for a 50, 100-mile drive and vary your speed and load on the truck really quickly before you take off on your trip? A little evening jaunt. Can you do that? Do you have time to do that? Or your car, doesn't matter, car, truck, whatever. Can you go on a little 100-mile jaunt and just vary the load on your truck, go down from 25 to 55 to 35 up to maybe 65? Don't floor it, vary your speed, vary your RPM. Can you go do that for 100 miles? If you can go do that, hook up to your trailer and go and be gentle on it for the first 1,000 miles. That will solve all of your issues. Or that will make your truck as happy as it needs to be. All of these vehicles, any production vehicle is built not to be a race car on the edge of destruction. There's tons of clearance built in to all of these systems. The metallurgy is spot on to allow them to last as long as they do. They're not a race car that has a finite life and you're going to blow it up just because you used or you towed something before 1,000 miles. Please don't worry about that. You're going to be okay. But respect your vehicle, especially in the first 100 miles. My go-to, I have a family friend, and he was a top GM engine designer, builder, machinist for a very long time. Like, I'm talking, he was working on Corvettes in the 60s. In fact, I'm pretty sure he was at GM when the Corvette came out. A lot of his major projects, first of all, he raced Corvairs highly competitively. He raced Camaro Z28s. He built a lot of engines. He built a lot of the engines that are well known in the Detroit street racing sphere of the 60s and 70s that were well known as being killer cars. There's a black Challenger that comes to mind that's being talked, that is kind of fabled car of the Detroit street racing scene. He built a really nasty big block Corvette for a guy. That was a really special car. I'm going to tell you his method, which is very similar to what I say. And I'm going to try to tell it as funny as he did. He's like, and this guy was able to have multiple vehicles from GM, like two 1970 Z28 302 Camaros side by side, and he'd break one in one way and break one in the other way, okay? And then he would go beat the tar out of them racing them. I mean, GM was big time with Corvettes and Camaros into Trans Am racing and drag racing. That was a big thing back in the day. So they had engineers that were really beating on things back then. His methodology is start with a vehicle. You drive it gingerly, so carefully for 100 miles, and then from 100 miles, 200 miles, you beat the tar out of it. Floor it at every stoplight, run it as hard as you possibly can, and that allows the rings to seat really, really tight, and it gives you the little bit of an advantage in cylinder pressure. He claimed that if he broke in a car like that, whether it was a 4-cylinder or a V8, whatever, it would always be faster than a car broken in any other way. But he said if it was going to break, it was going to break sooner when you use that method. So take that for what you will. His methodology was drive it for 100 miles and then drive it for another 100 miles, varying your speed. And then after that 100 miles, for 200 to 300 miles, go full throttle, but only go partly full throttle. And then for 300 to 400 miles, go full throttle and hold it a little bit longer. And then from 400 to 500 miles, just drive it gingerly again. And by 500 miles, you're broken. That's his methodology. And So his racing methodology is the first one. His normal consumer vehicle methodology is the second one. I prescribed the second one. That's what I try and do. This truck, I was put into a situation where I wanted to get a new truck. And then as I was going through the buying process of this, a situation came up where I was going to go with a buddy on a bear hunt. And I wanted to, we were going to use my truck, my hunting trailer, which we camp in. And we were going to leave the day after I ended up being able to get my truck. So that night I went for a 100-mile drive, and I varied speed and whatever. Took off the next morning with the trailer on back. Now, it's not a big trailer. Keep in mind the height, though. There's a lot of wind resistance with that trailer. It may not be very heavy, but it's a turd. So there was actually a fair amount of load on the truck. I varied speed. I didn't go over 62 is what I think I did all the way up there. By the time I got way up into the UP, I had already cleared, and I drove around a little bit too while he was hunting and explored and went fishing and whatever. By the time I had 500 miles on it, I'm convinced that this thing is pretty well broken. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a secret of something you should consider with four-wheel drive trucks. You're breaking in your rear axle from when you first take off. Unless you have a full-time front axle like an 03 to 09 third gen, or unless you get out and lock your hubs in, you're not breaking in your front axle. Would you want to... When do people commonly use four-wheel drive? When they're stuck. So would you rather take an axle that hasn't been broken and feed a whole bunch of torque to it and maybe have some wheel hop and whatever to get yourself unstuck, or maybe to pull a trailer out that's stuck? You have a ton of torque, ton of weight on your axle, and now you're loading up your ring gear and it hasn't had any braking miles on it? Or would you rather break your front axle in some? What I recommend is find a dirt road or a back road or somewhere, put in four-wheel drive. Just drive around gingerly. 10, 20 miles of dinking around in four-wheel drive. You can do it on cement too. That's not a big deal. No problem at all. On an HC truck, now I can't speak to, I can somewhat speak to like a Blazer or a Ranger. Their four-wheel drive systems, just like this, are plenty strong enough to be in four-wheel drive. The hop on the pavement doesn't hurt anything. The axles, the U-joints, the drive shafts, the T-case, the chain, everything is strong enough to handle the amount of traction that the truck puts down on pavement with its normal height. The four-wheel drive system can hop, bang, and pop all you want to do. You're not overstressing any of these components. So if you want to drive on pavement and four-wheel drive, as long as you have the same size tire front and rear, and as long as you don't have a situation where you swapped axles and you have a 410 gear in the back and 373 in the front, that's bad. Don't do that. But if you have the same gear, same size tires, take this thing for a ride and break in your front axle gently. If you can do it on a back road or something like that where you just tootle around four-wheel drive, bring your favorite soda or whatever the heck you like to consume, turn on your favorite music, and just, relax. Go for a drive, let your front end break in. So that way when you need to use your front axle, the ring gear and the pinion have interacted with each other. They've micro-polished those microscopic little bumps, and now they're nice and smooth, and everybody's happy. So when you put a ton of torque to it, you're not upsetting your ring gear. I highly recommend that you do that. And I don't think anybody will really tell you that, because I don't think a lot of people realize or think about the fact that you're not breaking in your front axle when you're driving around two-wheel drive. When you, like this truck has outer hub disconnects. So nothing inside the axle should be spinning except for maybe stiction. Could be causing a little bit of RPMs to be transferred from all the heavy grease that's in the hub. Could be causing that axle shaft to spin a little bit. Probably not, but could be. You're not getting any break-in unless you're putting in four-wheel drive or you lock the hubs and go for a drive. So highly recommend you guys do that. Hopefully that answers any questions in regards to breaking in your new truck. Don't fret about it, especially if you got something you got to do. If you got the time, go ahead and, do the 1,000 miles like has been commonly said for years. A lot of it comes down to they do not want to have a catastrophic failure, you towing your trailer on a brand new vehicle that hasn't been sorted. If you think about 1,000 miles, by the time you get to 1,000 miles on any vehicle, whether it be a snowmobile, a four-wheeler, or a truck, whatever was going to break has already broken. So you're already through all that. Now you're just having wear occur. One thing too is I want to point something out. All of this break-in is wear from the beginning from as soon as the vehicle starts being used to the point where it dies. All of that is wear. There's no improvement and then wear. That is a complete fallacy. This nonsense about, oh, my 7.3 Power Stroke has 280,000 miles. It's no, just broke in. No, it's worn out. I mean, an engine begins to wear from the beginning. Its clearances go like, or its clearances increase, but its accuracy to the intended tolerance is dropping. So from day one, there's no improvement and then drop. It is micro polishing wear. So keep that in mind. It's an important point. I hope you guys are enjoying whatever you guys are up to. Let me know if you are working on something, or if you got a new vehicle and you're watching this. Let me know what you're up to. Comment down below. Let's have, I love it when my viewers post make a comment and they make a conversation out of it. I just got a new truck. I'm getting ready to go on an RV trip. Blah, 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 blah. Love to hear it. I would like to hear what you guys are up to and what you're working on or what you're relaxing to do. I am hoping that we get a bunch of snow so I can get back out snowmobiling, but I'm not sure that's going to happen because my luck, Michigan will change its mind and be like, hey, we're going to have spring now. Hopefully you guys have a great day. Take care. Thank you all. I appreciate you.